I want to acknowledge our university and community supporters, the University of Iowa's international programs and the University of Iowa's honors program, as well as the Stanley UI Foundation Support Organization for their financial support. And thank you to today's special financial sponsors, Mace and K. Braverman and Midwest One Bank. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Dimi Dureska, lecturer and director for the Institute for International Business at the Tippie College of Business at the University of Iowa. Dimi will introduce each of our speakers and serve as the moderator for the program this afternoon. Dimi really is the reason that this program was started and has been at the University of Iowa and now is in its second year. So we all owe Dimi some thanks for the great work that he's already been doing at the University of Iowa.
Thank you very much, Thais. Great introduction. So it's such a pleasure to be here, second year in a row. So that must have been, maybe the fellows last year did a great job, I would say. If Ed asked us to come back, so that means they must have done a good job. So, and I told them when we were choosing the panel that the bar is gonna set pretty high, given the talk that we had last year with the first year fellows. But I can tell you that it's been, and I've been telling the fellows, this program has been the highlight of my career. And when I moved from the industry, from the private sector, with 15 years experience in international business, to teaching international business, I didn't think that such a program like this was going to come to my plate. And when last year I started to learn more about all the opportunities that exist in Africa and how these young entrepreneurs or young leaders, how they are really shaping the future of an entire continent. It is just amazing. And I kept telling them, I started going to Africa in 2015 and people ask me why you want to be involved with Africa? You're from Haiti. For those of you that don't know my background, you're from Haiti, right? And I said, well, I wanted to go back to my roots and to see what's going on. But being involved with these fellows, it's just been tremendous. And I can tell you this year, from what I've been seeing, from the type of project they're working on, it's just great. Those of you that don't know what the Mandela Washington Fellowship Program is, it's a U.S. State Department program created by President Barack Obama about 3 years ago to help young entrepreneurs, young leaders in Sub-Saharan Africa with entrepreneurship, business, civic leadership training, so they can go back and make a difference and continue in the development or in the betterment of their people. Most, or if not all, of these entrepreneurs, they are involved in social impact businesses, and so not only they are making their lives better, but they are also improving the lives of their countrymen, so of their people. So, which is really the best way to impact the world. But today we're here to talk about what these individuals are doing as entrepreneurs, as leaders on the continent. And the way we're going to do it, I'm going to start asking the three panel members some questions. And then we'll open it up for you to ask questions, and then the rest of the Mandela Fellows in the audience, we have 22 of them in the audience, aside from the three that are sitting here. So they will also participate in answering questions, in telling them, because we have 18 different countries represented in our cohort this year. So basically, that's a pretty nice sample of the 54 countries in Africa that we got here. So you'll hear what's going on the continent with respect to entrepreneurship and leadership. I want to start with Daniel Adugna, and he's from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and he's a young professional currently working as project manager for programs that target and promoting youth development across Africa. And Daniel is passionate about issues involving food insecurity and environmental protections and economic inequality. So, Daniel, the questions I have for you, as a new generation of African entrepreneurs, what differentiates you from the older generation? You can turn the microphone. Yeah.
Thank you, Dimi, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Dimi, for the question. Allow me to first maybe provide a small context on what young people and young entrepreneurship means in Africa today. In Africa, we have 55 countries. The Sub-Saharan Africa is more than around 50 of those. Majority of our countries, Africa is considered to be the youngest continent on the planet currently. That's because most of its population is young. More than 70% of the population in many of our countries is under the age of 40 years of age. Those whom we consider as youth, that is between 15 up to 35, make up roughly 40% of the population. What does it mean? That means that's the largest working population currently that is available. The dependency ratio of working age population to the dependency population is very high. And this creates new opportunities with itself in terms of including for entrepreneurship, for business, for productivity, investments, and so on, but also for some negative impact as well, such as terrorism recruitment, migration, and other sources as well. So currently the biggest focus in Africa is that how do we harness this great potential of young people, which can also become a liability, and promote and grow our countries. And here is where entrepreneurship comes in, because with the number of private sector and public sector currently existing in Africa, we cannot provide employment for all our young people. And young people increasingly are going into entrepreneurship as the young generation, the older generation was preoccupied mainly in the liberation struggles, in ending wars, conflicts, and so on. Most of our countries right now are stable, despite what people hear on the media. Most African countries actually do not have war. There are like probably 3 or 4 active conflict countries currently in Africa out of the 55 countries. So we do not have that much active wars currently. But the biggest challenge that Africa currently has is now how to put this working population. And the young generation, that's what we are preoccupied with. Africa has a big gap, has missed a very big gap in development in terms of technology advancements and so on. And now young people, young entrepreneurs are now jumping into how can Africa leapfrog into 21st century global business. And increasingly more than ever, the world is eager to hear for new solutions, new approaches, and new outlook into the world. And we believe as young African leaders and entrepreneurs that Africa could be that voice and that new opportunity, not only for Africa, but also for the whole world.
Daniel, you're touching on some very good point, but I'd like to hear Mapano Mohapi from Southern Africa, Lesotho, the mountain kingdom of Lesotho. and Mapano has 4 years experience in the beauty industry, and Mapano is currently the manager and the owner of the Fano Eve Bopello Beauty and Rehab Spa. So it's a day spa. I always tell her, oh, I can't wait to come and enjoy your day spa. and she works on nail technicians, makeup artists, leaders, administrators, and supervisors. So, Mapano, how do you see that in Lesotho from the Southern Africa standpoint? I mean, as the new generation of entrepreneurs, what does differentiate you from the old generation?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here to speak on behalf of my fellow Washington, Mandela Washington Fellows. I'll just carry on from what Daniel said. I think the one thing that we have to look at is especially the gap. We are probably the youngest continent in terms of gaining independence. So we are behind in a lot of things. So we still have a long way in trying to break away from our old tradition and culture and just norms in order for us to accept other developments. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that we need to find a way as young people to bridge that gap. The other issues that the old generation were fighting so much for the struggle, and when the struggle was over, they came in power. So most of them don't want to get out, that clinging on to the power, they don't want to get off the power. So we don't know how to actually say as young people we would like to fight these powerful, so-called powerful people who don't want to get off power. So what we can rather do is maybe now we can try to make our own revolutions, because the old revolutions, we can't find walls anymore and discover things or we can be innovative and creative, but we can't do discovery anymore. So why don't we try to make our own revolutions? For example, in South Africa, they had the Fees Must Fall revolution. That was a big standstill because the young people were able to put the whole country at a standstill to fight for a bigger cause. So I think the difference is now we have communication and media, which is we can pass messages even faster to try and figure out how to affect change in our own communities.
This is, I like the directions you are taking the conversation, Mapano, and if we go. So we were in the east, so we went south, but let's go to West Africa with Adewale Badejoko, and he has over 5 years experience in middle management and business consulting, and Adewale co-founded a firm called Inspire Foods, which is a snack and beverage company that focuses on locally made and packaged products from farm produce that could have gone to waste. Adewale, if you want to kind of like continue on with what Mapano was saying, what does entrepreneurship mean to you? And as a young leader, how do you use entrepreneurship to send a message?
All right. Thank you, Jimmy, for the question, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm truly excited to be here. I mean, you have a lovely city, and it's quite clean, and it's a good place for me to be in. And let's talk about entrepreneurship for a minute, because it's something that I'm so passionate about. Obviously, it's the reason why I'm here. Entrepreneurship, I'd like to say, is the ship entrepreneurs drive or sail on. And for me as a person, it's quite a lot of things. But what exactly is entrepreneurship? And I think we'll come to that or get a better understanding of that when we understand what entrepreneurship is not. So for me, I don't think entrepreneurship is setting up a business or taking a risk, as people have said it. I mean, anybody can take a risk. You could wake up one morning and jump off a cliff. It's a risk, right? But then does that mean you're entrepreneurial? And it's another thing people say about entrepreneurship, about setting up business. Anybody can set up a business. I mean, we've had a lot of people who have stolen government, public loot, and started business with it. Does that mean that they are entrepreneurs? So what then exactly is entrepreneurship? And I think of all the many definitions that we've had around over the years, I think there's one that actually maybe from me, and it's like my credo to what entrepreneurship basically is. And entrepreneurship in simple parlance is making the job worth the job. So what am I saying in essence? it's not exactly what you do. It's making what you do what you do. And so if you are going to probably sweep the floor, it's not sweeping the floor, it's being the best damn floor sweeper. So much so that if you're not sweeping their floors, nobody gets rest. Like, everybody just wants you to sweep their floor. Like, I want Adewale to be the one to sweep the floor. And when you trace this down, you realize it's all about value. And it's what exactly you are bringing on the table. And now let me bring this home. Now, when I got on the journey of course, the entrepreneurship, and I was going to start a business, it wasn't about becoming rich. It wasn't about taking a risk upon myself. I mean, who does that? It was not just about setting up a venture. But then something struck me, and I'd like to probably share this with you. So the concept of value then sinks home. I was taking a trip to Lagos, and while I was in the car, for a wide stretch on the road were a lot of watermelons and mangoes wasted there. And I just could not rest in my spirit on that journey. I knew something had to be done. And I realized that this is not just about that sin I've seen, it's something that is endemic, because about 60% of farm produce from small-scale farmers never make it down to the table. So you have what you basically call post-harvest wastage. Everybody there is losing. I mean, and when you think of Africa, especially what the media has branded us over time, it's a continent with malnourishment and hunger and undernutrition, which technically isn't correct, but that's not exactly the whole story. And so here's a country producing like elephants, but then eating like ants. And then it struck me, value. How do I help the situation to actually change the narrative of what exactly it is? Well, am I getting small profit from it? Yes, maybe. But then in terms of offering value to the farmers now, they are able to save more, get more money, reduce their post-harvest wastage. People get to access healthy organic food products at affordable prices. And this basically is the hallmark of entrepreneurship. And I think this has helped my business grow personally. So generally, you begin to understand or get a sense to what entrepreneurship is. It's not about just waking up one morning and say, I'm not working for somebody, I want to start up my own business. You can start up your own business and be a mediocre at it. So it's about making a job worth the job. Thank you.
Very good, Adewale. This is I like the way you talked about the challenges that that you are seeing in this too, and that's why I like to kind of like segue into the challenges that you are facing, and like to hear some of the things that you are doing to overcome those challenges. And let's start with my panel. Because I know you have a good story on that. What are the key challenges, and how do you face? How have you faced them, or continue to face them?
I think for me, when I got into entrepreneurship, was discovering that I needed to find an escape. I needed to be free. So here I am at the age of, when did I complete my university? At the age of 25, I've just graduated. I'm a woman, I'm a young woman, I'm disabled, and I'm an African, and I live in Africa. That's a lot of challenges, believe me. So we graduate, and we realize that there's no jobs or employment. Let me say there's no employment. And even if I got employed, the infrastructure did not allow me to be able to go to those places to actually work there. So I'm left with this challenge that I want to be great. Everybody wants to make money, and they want to build a family, have a house, and just be successful. So what do I do? So I think entrepreneurs need to be able to, first of all, to know that there has to be a problem in order for something for you to be an entrepreneur. So for me, at first it was about getting a job, and then I realized that entrepreneurship is not a job. Entrepreneurship is the labor of love. You have to labor what you love and make sure you progress. So here I am with all these disadvantages, and finally I find that I'm an entrepreneur in all the adversities that I faced. Because I came home disabled. Well, I was rehabilitated next to a developed country, which was South Africa, and I came back home and I had all these advantages. And for me, entrepreneurship was just a weapon. And the one thing I've learned is that entrepreneurship is definitely a lifestyle. But in order for you to be an entrepreneur, it means you have to first discover why you're an entrepreneur, then you have to have capital. That is equals product and customers, which is equals to a business. If you don't have this formula, then there's no business. So being a problem solver, being a risk taker that I started this business in my room, and slowly people started progressing, and I finally built my beauty day spa where I was able to make it accessible for me, because it was about solving my problem at first. You can't be an entrepreneur without solving your problem first and then wanting other people to come to you to solve their problems. So I had to solve my problem first, and which was I wanted to have an accessible place where I can get people to come and feel this accessibility that I was experiencing, and in turn it became a business. Thank you.
Well, Mapano, this is good. I mean, so the way you're presenting this, it's like with entrepreneurship, you guys on the continent are challenging the unemployment problems. Yes. You are also solving issues. Not only you are solving you're creating employment for yourself, but for others, but you are also solving issues of hunger and things like that. So, Danielle, I mean, what do you see? I mean, what do you think? I mean, the challenges, we know them, but how are you guys using your leadership and using entrepreneurship to tackle those challenges on the continent?
For me, my passion into entrepreneurship actually came out exactly out of those challenges that do exist. My full-time work in the area of projects and policy actually talks about proposing and subscribing solutions to people on how they are supposed to be organizing their lives better and their works better so they become successful. And that is in the context of the development assistance and what we have under the UN and African Union and other organizations that are doing charity work. The only problem is for the past 50 years, it has not worked. It has failed because despite all the big monies and donations that have been pumped, charity has actually made Africa poorer and not richer because of the helplessness and mental degradation, disempowerment that it creates to our citizen. And that's where I actually saw entrepreneurship as actually a way not only to impact and create a legacy for myself alone, but actually help solve real problems and impact real people. My initial interest was in the area of hospitality industry, where I can set up fast food chain restaurants for the big urban sprawling young population in the city. Except that I discovered there's one big challenge: where do I get my chicken from? Because we do not have that big established industries. And instead of focusing on the retail of actually finished food, I realized that the actual industry where I can enter is actually the poultry production and poultry growing area business. So that's the study and evaluation that we've been doing, except for one big challenge. What do we do with the farmers whose land we're going to acquire and establish our venture? Although establishing business is good, but the growing income disparity would become a liability to back on ourselves, and it would backfire. That's where we had to redesign our model, where we actually include the farmers as part of our supply chain. That is, we would supply them with our chicks, day-old chicks, and animal feed. They would grow them, and we'll buy them back, process them, and supply them to the market. That way, not only are we solving our own capacity issues in our business, but we're also growing with the community together, whom we are serving. And those challenges are actually helping us to be creative, to be more impactful, and actually be role models as well as you mentioned, leaders is like to be an example of how other businesses could follow suit and what young led entrepreneurs can actually be promoting at the same time social justice, income disparity, but also decent livelihoods and dignity to our communities.
See, I like the fact that we've been talking for almost 15 minutes now, and you have not mentioned, or about there, 20 minutes, not mentioned any government support, any like sitting back waiting for government to do things for you. So that means you are really taking your destiny in your own hands.
Yeah.
And why is that? Is this the representation that exists right now in Africa, that the youth, the way they are challenging the status quo, is trying to empower themselves using entrepreneurship or using other means instead of relying on government? So what's happening? How are things going in Africa with respects to government support? So what are some of the things the government are doing to support the youth, the young entrepreneurs? Adewale, yes, please, go ahead. Go ahead, Ade. Yeah.
I think I'd like to start by saying it begins with me. And I'm a bit student of history. And when we look at this wonderful country called America, and you begin to look at the tilting point, the moment where it all changed, and you realize it wasn't exactly the government who did that. At least they were not existing at the time. It was men like Rockefellers coming up with wonderful innovations in oil, in petroleum, even in the logistics in which these products are being transferred. And that gave a new dimension to how we transfer products. We can mention people like Henry Ford, and the whole idea of a manufacturing process line came up. The government didn't do that. And you just get to realize that if anything really is gonna happen, anything really, then it has to start with me. You need to understand where we come from, or personally where I come from. The mindset is go to school, get a good job, and start a family. And it's actually okay, right? But then somebody needs to actually create these jobs. And it was so tough at the time, because if you check now, you still know that there's a staggering unemployment quota in Africa, especially in Nigeria. I mean, we have the largest population in the whole of Africa. And so many people are unemployed. And I'm going to leave school and join that same sector. It really doesn't make so much sense. Who's solving? And really, let's be fair to ourselves. Because sometimes I'd like the fact that we point accusing fingers at the government and say, yes, they are the many cause of our many troubles. But who exactly are the government? How do you know people like us who we have elected into those positions? Okay. But then I realized that for anything to really happen, then it has to actually start with me. And so, and when you look at history down the line, not just about Africa or about entrepreneurship, but generally, you realize that people are the ones who move history, and they all usually start with one person. And you can talk of Martin Luther King in respect to the civil rights movement, and quite a lot of many names that we can mention that you and I already know. And so if the problem is really going to change, then it actually has to be with me. And this is one of the keys or the tools that I'm using. And you know, there's an adage in Yoruba that says, permit me to quote this, it says, "Omo to ba shepa Lamangbe," means that it's the kid that, you know, sort of put the hands in this position. It makes it easy for the parents to carry. Do you get what I'm saying? Now, even if I'm going to ask for the government support, I've shown track record in terms of impact. Now it's easy. And truth is, the government could actually be clueless. They are human beings just as we are. And no pun intended. But the point is, they'd like to give back power. They'd like to, you know, see things happen. But then they need young people with good ideas to actually move this thing. So I need for some sort to actually show some things done already in that sector. And the truth is, yes, there's still many more problems to solve, but we are getting good feedbacks in terms of it. So we cannot just throw our responsibilities and just appropriate blames on people for the many troubles in our lives. I mean, if anything will change, then it definitely has to start with us. And so I'm starting with me, and this is getting attraction. I mean, people are beginning to join the support, people are beginning to come on the campaign, and gradually, you know, they said one step at a time. And with this, I think we can really change it. So yes, we would like to have more involvement when it comes to government, and well, maybe they are doing their own little quota, but if we really want to move things, and really who move things, I think it's people, not really the government. Thank you.
Thank you. And you can start sending your questions to me, and I'll start asking them questions from the audience. I got the first one here. So it seems that the entrepreneurs and leaders from Africa whom we've heard from this year and last year are particularly attuned to community building and social entrepreneurship. Do you think that's true?
I think we should not say or think profit and purpose are mutually exclusive. I think there's a right blend between making profit and actually balancing purpose. I mean, when we even have this money, what do we do with them? So I think it's true that we have people not just particular about themselves. And if I would say something, one of the things that have actually set Africa some miles back isn't because we don't have intelligent people there.
But is it really people from your generation that is more focused on social impact ventures? Mapano?
I will answer this question from a personal point of view. When I started my business was for my personal interest. It was for me to personally make profit. It was for me to personally grow. But then when you become good at entrepreneurship, you become a leader. And it just automatically happens. So now people, remember when you become a leader and your people now recognize you, people start looking up to you, people start admiring you, people start asking you questions, people start coming for you to advise, and then you realize that you're actually a social entrepreneur. It's not that you wake up and say you're gonna be a social, you just impact silently in the dark, and then everything comes to the light. And then that's how you become.
That's really good. So really, you didn't decide to be a social entrepreneur. It's just things that you've seen. You see how you can impact.
Yes.
Very, very, very good. Very good. So watermelons going to waste. So what can you do with them? I've seen dried mangoes, but dried watermelon? What do you think?
Well, I mean, we could come up with a technology that dries watermelon, but it will no longer be watermelon after. This is what we decided to do. We realized that our people make produce but can afford food products. We make corns, but cornflakes is so difficult to find on our table. And so what we do with these watermelons and products like produce like watermelon is to apply simple processing techniques. And that sort of prevents their lifespan a bit. So we make jams with them, we make juice with them, we make fruit salad, we make nut mixes. And so it sort of saves the lifespan for this product and helps them to travel. You should also understand that most of the production efforts when it comes to agriculture in Nigeria is done in the rural communities, and most of the consumption is done in the urban center. So when this produce travel on these not so good roads, a lot of them tend to, accident and all of those things. So what we do is try to reduce all of this, the problems along the value chain, right? And so we turn them using simple techniques into product. They are able to move faster or move better rather than having the products just waste. And so that's what we're doing. And we're also looking up to more technologies to help us in, improving.
Now, did you have problem with big companies? Did you perceive any problems or solutions or difficulties for small farmers for their products to be selected for distribution process? So basically, how do you face, because there are a lot of big companies owned by the older generation, how do you face their competition? How do they see you guys as the young entrepreneurs? Daniel, maybe you can take a tab at this.
Thank you, Demi. The big corporations and companies are still there. There are those set of companies that were set up in the previous generations. And true, linking it to the previous question, they don't necessarily think as social entities. They are purely pro-business, pro-profit, as most businesses are. And oftentimes also back home in the business environment, we don't have that healthy competition environment. So most of your competitors think of you as the enemy first and not necessarily as a long-term partner or anything else. So the immediate strategy for them would be to actually to crush you and to get you out of the market before you even have your wings to fly. But some of the remedy or some of the opportunities come also with it. If, like I mentioned at the start, if young people are the largest population group in the country, that's also a huge power of consumption. That's also the largest group of electorates. That's the largest group of the working population and so on. And young people have the added advantage of connecting better to their peers. So that means we are not necessarily addressing the same market segments that they have been addressing. We are addressing market segments that are actually emerging, both that are created through the changed and emerging lifestyle changes that are coming with the new emerging middle class, but also looking at the new demand that is being created as new young middle class is flourishing. So that's, I believe, how the two are mutually coexisting, like we're trying to get out of the way, but also they're very relatively slower on social media, on the internet, and things like that. So we try to exploit that to our advantage as well.
Very good, very good. The next question we have is, what role, if any, should the rest of the world have in Africa? Should we be replacing development aid with foreign investments or something else? Because I remember, Danielle, you mentioned that development aid has been really a problem instead of a solution. So should we be replacing development aid with foreign investment or something else? What do you guys think? I mean, the Mandela Fellows in the audience, you also can jump in if you want. So, Femi, you're dying to provide an answer. Okay.
France.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I was not dying to answer the question. That's funny, actually. Yeah. I mean, for the past 40 or 50 years since independence, that was around the 1960s, I think the West came up with the international aid to Africa. But when we try to make a summary of what has been achieved in Africa through the development, the international aid, we just realized that the international aid has not done so much in Africa, because the international aid in Africa makes just 2% of the GDP of Africa. What, some people in the Western countries used to think that's 15 or 20%, but it's just 2% of the GDP. And unfortunately for us, when we receive the international aid, it's through a paternalistic standpoint. Yeah. Because in this country, we receive the international aid from where the former colonizers. I'm from a French-speaking country, so I know a bit about what is happening between Benin and France. When we receive an international aid, most of the time it is through a top-down management system. It's France who decide how we have to invest that money. We are the one who know our needs. It's not France who know the needs of Benin. We better know our needs. So it's better saying, okay, we are ready to help you. You just try to find out in which sectors you have to invest in, instead of saying you have to invest in this, you have to invest in that. So this has not done so much good to Africa. And that's why we say that we have to stop with the international aid. We are open to with the generation of today, we are open to partnership, we are open to collaboration. That's why the Chinese collaboration with Africa is welcome today. Because when we discuss with Chinese today, when we discuss with the Chinese people, of course, there are some huge gaps to fill. But when we discuss with Chinese people, we discuss on equal foot. I mean, when we go to the discussion table, we talk business on a win-win relationship. Just to give an example, the first interchange in my country that we needed years back, the first interchange in my country was built by China. It was a $40 million interchange, but actually it was built for free through an international corporation. But in the backyard, we know it's business because they're kind of a tax exemption when they import the goods in the country. There are kind of facilities that they have. But this is what I call, a win-win partnership. We have that interchange that makes traffic between the northern south, the northern part of the country and the southern part of the country easier, and we like growing our business through that interchange that connects all the part of the country. So this is just an example of what is happening. And as I said, for sure, we have to fill some gap, but we are more open today to collaboration. That's why the group was very keen on not letting our brothers and our sister not using the word help. We don't need help. We don't need international aid. We want collaboration and partnership, and we think the generation of today, the young leaders of today, that we can achieve more through that, that lens, that point of view. That's it.
Very good, Femi. Very good. You could not have said it better. And Femi co-founded an agricultural company that he's a farmer, by the way. He forgot to say that. He's a farmer, and he specializes in organic farming with some of his partners. So that's what he does. And to elaborate on what he said, the African diaspora send more money back home than foreign aids. The African diaspora send more money back home than foreign.
In 2012, they sent home $40 billion. That was the money that came from abroad to Africa, and no international aid or international cooperation had reached that level.
So it's just to put it into perspective for you to understand. But I have another question that that I'd like you guys, to elaborate. Maybe that's also is part of the international aid. So government corruption can be a stumbling block to entrepreneurship. Was this a problem in your business ventures? What can be done to reduce the bureaucratic corruptions?
Can I?
Yes, Mapano.
As usual, I'll talk from my experience. So when I was starting out to expand and start my business, there was this so-called opportunity that the government was giving funds to the youth, and they can go and apply for these funds to start their businesses. So I rode my wheelchair there several times, I think about 10 times. They took me back every time to correct my business plan, which did not need correction. And further, after the delay, we discovered that they had taken some money for their own benefits. So I think this is a very big issue in the sense that there's a lot of corruption, and it's not helping us develop as much as we can, which is why we had looked on to other things like applying for the Mandela Fellowship to find a way and maybe find solutions as to why these problems keep persisting, because we're trying to develop, but then other people are not, the government is not looking at it that way. So I think I had a problem in that because I was delayed and I couldn't find any funds to start the business, and had to continue with the business in my room for about a year. And I think we still have a big problem in that situation.
Anybody else want to elaborate on what really the young leaders, young entrepreneurs are doing to challenge the corruption issues in Africa?
Can I just add one
Yes,
or two
Ade.
things?
Yeah.
I'd like to first of all say government corruption does not only affect entrepreneurship, it affects lives.
Yeah.
Social-wise, welfare, and every other sector. And I'll be lying to say Nigeria is not witnessing that as well. Thankfully, we have a president who's actually built his whole campaign agenda on the anti-corruption war. But then as a young person, I think we have a very big power which has become an integral part of our life. And that brings me to social media, which we are exploiting as a tool. I think it would be senseless of me to just wake up and walk to Aso Rock, where it's like the seat of power, and try to sort of cause an unrest there in trying to solve the government corruption. And you should know this is something endemic, and it's not going to sort of change overnight. And I'm not going to really achieve so many things if I should have taken that line of action. But then I think it requires applying tact. And in my own case, is using the tool at my disposal to be able to, move one or two things and change people's mentality. But then again, it starts with me. And you must, how is it said now? If you must preach equity, you must come with clean hands. I mean, it's easy for us to judge. You have to remove the speck from your own eyes before you see the log in other people. But then, as a young person, I think we have technology and social media, and young ones that like myself, that I know, actually using this tool to change what used to be the previous status quo, and to start. You see wonderful graphics, you see wonderful videos, you see infographics showing some government activities, sharing knowledge on these issues with the public. And one of such is the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. Even when the government was going to sit back on this issue, we used social media, gain international support, and we've seen quite a lot of development in that ground. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Adewale. We got another question here. Can you give a profile on what young people in Africa value and seek through their lives? Do they want a huge family, a big house? What are their aims and goals in life?
I think we should throw this out.
Pablo.
Hello everybody. My name is Pablo. I'm from a cultural Guinea, one tiny country, a country that has been suffering from corruption. But what do we want in life? As I come here to Iowa is a very big clean city, with intelligent people. That's something we also want to achieve in Africa. Going back to the question, sorry for the question of foreign aid. There's a saying that if you give a man a fish, you feed him all his life. But if you show him how to fish, then he will be independent. That's why I don't like foreign aid. But what Africa wants to be, we don't want to have kids that die for malaria. We want to finish that. We want to be able, when we sit in the table with developed countries, talk to them, collaborate, not for asking for help. That's what we want. We want to make our continent be great. That's why I left Donald Trump saying that make America great. Because if you don't make your people great, if you always go out to ask help, you're not going to make it in life. You're going to be dependent. So we are not seeking big houses. The foreign leaders of our country, when they were coming to the West, they were coming to ask for help. When they get this help, they go home and they secure their power. They kill all the opponents and they stay there. But us, we come for collaboration, to make you come to Africa and enjoy what we've come to enjoy here, because we can have foreign exchange. We have not just going to Africa to, let's say, to see people dying for anger, but coming to Africa as where's my friend Leslie?
This is my brother.
Yeah, going to Victoria Falls to see the wonders of Africa. That's what we want our continent to be. Equal to Western world, equal to United States. At least I want my country to be free of corruption. I'm not going to become corrupt. I don't want to do that. I want my country to be in the news about good things, not only because CNN is going to tell that the son of my president has stolen money. That's not what we want to hear. We want to hear that people in Equatorial Guinea live like people in Abu Dhabi or in Qatar. We want our continent to be great, and that's the message. We are not willing to have big houses, the big mansion. But if I work to earn it, that would be good, not for stealing from my people. That's my answer to that question.
We want to give some stuff. Well, let's take Barak instead. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Barak from Kenya. So, a very important question has been posed. What do we want? What motivates us? We all want good life. During the weekend, we took a trip to one of our instructors' house. And when the bus entered the compound, I thought now we are at the old capital, because the house was so huge and the compound is spacious and it's so nice. It's a nice feeling. And then, like, I told my friends, do you believe that in America we actually in Iowa, you know, that nice feeling, that is what we want. We want an improved quality of life. We want freedom. Development is freedom. You want to purchase items. You want to go shopping, that you don't have to look at the price of something. You just see after that, you go home. That is what we want, and that is what we are working towards for. Not just for us, but for our families, for our parents, for our friends. We want the quality of life to improve. It's so hard for you in Africa, like you are out there partying and someone cannot even afford breakfast. Someone cannot afford to buy a book to maybe read. Someone is asking for knowledge. So that is why we are coming up with all these solutions, not just to improve the quality of life of others, but to generate income, to increase our per capita income. That is what motivates us. We want to make Africa a better place, and we want to get all those people out of the streets. We want them to create jobs, want to create employment opportunities, want to, like the Millennium Development Goals. That is what is inspiring us in each and every way. I'll give you a personal example. There was a time my father was sick, and we took him to hospital, and then he was being treated for the wrong disease. Then it took the intervention of an oncologist who was trained here in America to highlight this is your problem. And in less than 6 months, the outcome was nice. So that transfer of technology from America to the oncologist in Kenya is what saved my father. And that is the transfer of technology and knowledge that we need. And that is what we are looking for what we want. Like when we are here, we want to learn about entrepreneurship, we want to learn about these technological ways of doing things. In Kenya, it used to take you like 2 months to register a company. Right now, the government introduced a portal. We are doing it online. It only takes you a week to register a company. It takes you a day to search for the name, and the name is approved. That is the kind of technology that the youth in Kenya are using to eliminate all these bureaucracies and make sure that it's a nice environment to work on and operate a business. So we want good life, and when you come to Kenya, like the way we walk here on the streets and people are smiling at you and you're just happy, that is what motivates us. So we hope that those of you who are planning to come to Africa, everyone will be meeting you, be smiling at you and welcome you. You'll have the nice feeling of being in Africa, just like the way all of us here. See, we are smart, we are nice. Because so that is what is motivating us.
All right. That's a nice way, Barak, to end this for us. This is great, and thank you again to our panels. Thank you to all the Mandela Fellows in the audience, and we thank the Iowa City Council of Foreign Relations for inviting us again this year. So, Thais, back to you.
Thank you. Well, just as I thought last year when I met your first-year Mandela Fellows who came to Iowa, when I hear you all speak, I can't help but have a lot of hope for the world. So,
Yep, that's right.
so Danielle and Mapano and Adewale, I would just like to sincerely thank you, especially. And we have a very small token of affection. We hope you'll come back for your second cup once you've expanded your businesses and have, become international in your scope. And maybe we'll see some beauty industry in the United States that will say, "Oh, that's Mapana. We know her." Yeah. So, thanks again to our sponsors, the University of Iowa's international programs, the University of Iowa's Honors Program, and the Stanley UI Foundation Support Organization for their generous support. And we also thank today's special financial sponsors, Mason K. Braverman and Midwest One Bank. With that, we'll close today's program, and I know everyone in the audience wishes all of you every success, and we look forward to hearing your stories in the future. So thank you.